Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the panel for taking the time to be able to be here. I come from a state where a significant portion of the land is owned and managed by the federal government, and I've long supported a balanced approach to federal land management, one that supports multiple uses, keeps public lands accessible, and prioritizes the voice and wishes of the local community. The biggest concerns that I hear out of my district are about the one-size-fits-all approach that we've seen from the federal land management agencies over the last several years. Public lands across my state and the country each have different characteristics. For example, I've been a longtime advocate for responsible, all-of-the-above energy development on public lands where appropriate, recognizing there are some areas of public land where energy development is not appropriate. Local land managers and members of our communities are the people who know their public lands best, and I think it is imperative that any bill that we move through this committee puts more power over land management decisions back in their hands. This is why I have concerns about any bill that could potentially open up all of the wilderness areas to mechanized vehicles without first having input from local land managers and local stakeholders. I think back to a process that we had through this committee as we developed the Hermosa Creek Watershed Protection Act, which was signed into law in 2014, to be able to create the Hermosa Creek Special Management Area in an adjacent 37-acre wilderness area. We worked with local officials, stakeholders, and throughout the process, while bicycle travel is not allowed within the wilderness area, there are recreational trails that are open to bicycle use with the adjacent special management area. The input of the federal and local officials, recreation groups, and the voices of the local community were imperative to the success of the Hermosa Creek effort. And I want to be able to ensure that all the policies coming out of the federal government support this type of collaboration. Mr. Stroll, I know that my colleague and the chairman of the subcommittee, Mr. McClintock, has touched on the issue today, but could you expand perhaps a little bit more on how the local land managers working with the local communities could be able to determine which trails may be best fit to in those wilderness areas, and are they suitable for bicycle use? And a little takeoff on the ranking member's question in terms of some of the innovations that we've seen in bicycles. I noted that you had a recumbent bicycle for a handicapped individual, which certainly didn't used to exist, for accessibility for Americans with disabilities into those areas as well.
Yes, Sustainable Trails Coalition's vision is that there be an informal local process, not involving endless NEPA review and years and years and years of environmental analysis, because we're only talking about a change in use on trails of human-powered transport. Our idea is the forest ranger, the park ranger, the BLM official in charge of a particular area like the Gunnison National Forest would call in the stakeholders, just as you're describing. We would sit down at a table with large maps, go over the trail system, everybody talks about their knowledge of the trails, and then at the end of that, maybe after some more deliberation, the forest manager types up an order and posts it saying mountain bikes can go here because there's hardly anybody using this area, like in the Powderhorn Wilderness, near Lake City. But in the Maroon Bells, where it's heavily used, all summer long, and it's way overcrowded actually. No mountain bikes are allowed at all. Maybe they would say mountain bikes can go over from Crested Butte to Aspen over the Maroon Bells, but only on Wednesdays after Labor Day, something like that. So Chairman McClintock's legislation, although it is terse in its form, it doesn't take away from any of these federal regulations that are in the Code of Federal Regulations that allow full authority for the local manager to do that. And that is our vision. Sit down at a table with maps and just talk about it. And then they decide. And they have full discretion. Now, on your other question about the evolution of bicycles, I do want to say one thing. We've probably all seen television commercials or print advertising showing these guys in body armor with these full-face helmets, like charging down a slope somewhere with clouds of dust flying up and everything. That is not what wilderness mountain biking would be. It's very physically demanding. You have to be very physically fit to do it. And it's only the most intrepid and self-reliant kind of mountain biker with a very light bicycle who can go out and do that kind of, to ride on the kind of trails that wilderness offers. So you also have to preserve yourself. If you're riding in an insane manner, you face the possibility of serious injury. It's going to be very hard to get you out of there.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Soto.